Hi, I'm Mr. Miyagi and this is Mr. Miyagi's Workshop. Well, today we're going to take on the old Shovelhead 4-speed. Now this is a rotary top, a little different than the ratchet top, but these are still a very good transmission. I like them well. But this one I had in one of my Shovelheads, and it had a bit of whine in, well, it had a lot of whine in third gear and it was starting to whine in second. So I thought it was time to rebuild it. So let's get to it. So I'm going to start by taking the kickstart mechanism off, and then we'll go to the rotary, and then we'll go to some other parts over on the other side, on the sprocket side. But these are 1/2 inch. You have to pull them off. So let's get to it. I'll get my tool here. Now, one of the little tricks you can do for getting this cover off easy is take a crescent wrench. If you don't have the kickstart on, you kick it back a little bit. So what you're trying to do is you're not trying to hang up on that kickstart. See how that flipped around? All right. This right here has a spot where it hits inside here. And looks like I'm going to have to drain the oil a little bit more before I continue. Now, one of my favorite tools in the shop is these baking pans. My wife had extras, so I didn't steal this from the kitchen. She gave it to me. And I actually have a couple more over there. They work well, plus these soakers. And I'm going to pull the transmission off the stand here. And get it over there. And we'll just set it there. Now, one of the other things you can make yourself, you could buy, but if you have a piece of metal, all you got to do is pick up these 4 holes and weld a piece of heavier steel on that, and that becomes your transmission mount for working on these transmissions. So we're going to go ahead and pull a lot of this other stuff off here that we don't need. It has to come off anyway. And if you don't know what this is if you're running, especially if you're running a belt drive, you want to run one of these supports, because if you don't have your inner primary on, what it does is it helps support this main shaft. Pull all this off there. Okay, so I think one of the other things we're going to do is we're going to take this rotary cap off. And these are 7/16 bolts. So we'll get those going. Grab my tool again. And then we have one that's real difficult to get to unless you pull that bolt. I guess we could pull it. There we go. So that'll come off. Put this one back. All right. So this just takes a little tap to get off. Feels like it's in neutral. There. Okay, so one other thing you want to do is you want to make sure you don't drop, when you pop that cap off, you don't want to drop these little shifting pods. They go on there and help guide it. for shifting. So they ride inside here, they take up the wear factor and everything in that. So, okay. This is drained out pretty good here. I think what we're going to do is put this tranny back on its stand. Okay, one of the next things I want to do, I want to definitely pull these off, set them aside because we don't want to drop in the tranny. But I want to pull this shifting pin out of here. And the only way to get that out is you have to remove this C-clip that's right there. So that just has to come off. Well, let's rotate that around. Hopefully we can get it to go around here. And that should just pop off there. And into the trash basket. Luckily, it was a good find. So, anyway, so this will come out of there. Right back here, there's a small hole that you can put a punch into that will push out that rod. You got to get a longer one, it looks like. There we go. And that just pushes that pin completely out of there. So these just slide out. Grab that one. And we're going to check the wear on that. There's a little bit of wearing right in there, that area right there. Feels a little rough. Okay, so put that aside. And we'll pop this other one off. That doesn't feel too bad. There is a little bit of wearing right in that area there, but not bad. Pull our pin out. And that does, still looks okay. So, all right. So now what we need to do is that we need to take this nut off here off the main shaft so we can start pulling other things out of there. And this whole gear housing and everything. So let me get that set up and we'll get to it. Okay, so this is a 1-inch right here. It takes a 1-inch socket. And it's nice if you have one of these zip guns. Takes that loose. And there's a little keeper thing right here. Helps lock everything on there, that nut. Now we need to pull that off. Sometimes you can tap these and they'll come right off. And other times I have to get in with my little puller. Not gonna budge. Yeah, I forgot that I was supposed to film this part, but all I did is I've got a 3-arm puller here, and I modified mine a little bit so they're a little flatter so they can go in behind this inner gear. And you have to push the spring back in there a little bit to get them to hook in there. And sometimes you got to put a little C-clamp or something around it to hold it, or a little, well, I used a hose clamp just to kind of hold the 3 in place, and it comes right off. And then that just slides right off there. There's also a little of the keyway there. And then we have the inner gear comes off and a spring. Now I've also removed the screws out of here so you could take off the inner plate. And then we have one more screw right here, or excuse me, one more nut that we have to take off on the inside. But you've got this one has a tab on it. So we want to knock that tab down. There we go. Now I don't remember what size nut that is, so let me get back to you on that. Yeah, that's an 1 3/8 nut. I happen to have this larger socket that I was able to just barely slip on there to get that, and I may end up one of these days just cutting this and adding a little extension on it so that it fits on there a little better. Anyway, that comes off. And we're pretty much ready to start pulling gears and such out of this. So I'm going to pop out this lower cluster here. Let's just pull that shaft out. Now that's locked in. That's locked in with this piece right here. There's actual spot on the shaft itself for that. And once again, you've got to kind of persuade it out of there. All right. So it does have a notch where it has a notch so that this fits in there. And that's what keeps that shaft to hold that cluster and everything in place. Pull this out. And then this should rotate out of there. And we have a shim piece that goes right in there, so we don't want to lose any of this stuff. So anyway, that goes over here, out of the way. And if we do this proper, okay, so it got kind of everything kind of loosened up here. I'm going to see if this will tap out. So what that does is it pushes that bearing out, which is kind of pressed onto that shaft, and leaves everything else in place there. And I have a snap ring on the inside here that I have to remove, so this whole cluster will come out. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to take off this snap ring here. And I usually just get underneath of them so I can come in behind with a screwdriver and work that off. This sometimes is not the easiest thing to do, and it's not the easiest thing for me to film because I have to have my hands in there to get to this. And this all just kind of walks off there, if you can get it to walk off. There it goes. And roll it around a little bit more. Okay. There. Once you get it to go out of that little groove, you just got to work it towards the sprocket side of the transmission. Let me get this turned just a little bit more here. There we go. So this just all kind of walks that way. There we go. And this just slides out of there. There's a little keeper on there. This all comes apart. There we go. It's not looking too bad. Alrighty. So everything is pulled apart. And this is what I was talking about on that snap ring. Just there, and then you have another little groove spacer that holds that all together. And then your main drive housing. So now everything has to be cleaned up, checked over, and we can reassemble it. Now I ended up buying a James transmission kit, and it comes with bushings and shafts and snap rings and all the good stuff. So hopefully this won't take that long to put back together again. All right, well, since I'm waiting on this main shaft, this one here is a little rough and stuff. I thought I'd go on and do a couple other things to this transmission. Now, one of the things that goes wrong with these trannies, these mounting bolts, which are right in here and here and here, the fluid weeps past these threads, and that's kind of one of the standard things that on these transmissions are. So I'm going to show you how I seal them up. Another spot too is this outer stud for holding your brace for the main shaft. But how I get these out of there is I just use a couple of mounting nuts, bring them down on there, and then just tighten the nuts. I can already tell that this one's loose. I barely had to turn it, and it's already loose. So that means this thing could be weeping. And when I had it in had this in there, that was one of the problems on this bike. This tranny is that I had a little extra fluid coming from the transmission, and I suspect that is where it was leaking, in this area here. So we just take these out. We'll take this nuts off here. And then what I'm going to go through is I'm going to clean up all these threads and even the threads in the transmission, and then probably going to pull this one out too and seal it. That's the only one because it's the lowest part, and there is actually a hole that goes from this mounting bolt here into that shaft there. So if we take care of that too, that'll help considerably. Let's go ahead and take that right out of there. So all that does is screw on there like that. So yeah, all I'm doing is a double nut and then unscrewing these out of there. So you can see it, they're not in there all that tight. But let me show you something here. I don't know if this will do it, but I don't know if you can see that or not. But that screw is going all the way through there. So there's an actual hole. So what we want to do is we want to clean up all these threads on the case, and then I've got some sealant that I'll show you a trick on this. So let me get these all cleaned up and then I'll get back with you. Okay, I've cleaned the case and I've cleaned out all the area with a little bit of acetone, and then I've got these little I don't know what you call them. What are they? Cotton swabs, and I got a whole package of different sizes from Harbor Freight, which is kind of nice. So I used some of these to clean out all these thread areas. Like I said, I used acetone to help clean that out. Now, I've gone back and sprayed those areas with this surface prep from Penetrator, and I'm using the Loctite, what is it, 27200. So these two products here are what I'm using. Now, when you put this Loctite on, and you're going to put it in the hole, screw your unit. Let me see if I can get my other one here that I've already set up here. You don't want to dink around. You want to be fast with this, because once this sets up, it sets up. And it's amazing how fast it will set up. Hopefully I have enough to finish this project. I've used this on several other transmissions. There we got some going on there. So now what you want to do is set it, and I have a tool because I've had this the first time I ever did this, I had it set up on me, and dang, it took all day for me to get that stud back out. Not on this transmission, of course, but so I'm just doing the old double nut technique, and I don't know if can you see it. You know, it's sealing all the way around there, and I just let it, once I put it in, I just let it sit. And this is going to sit for a couple of days because I'm still waiting on parts. Yeah, it's the way my life's been going nowadays, always waiting on something. So we'll tighten these down on there. All right. So once again, we're going to apply some of this on there. We can get it to go here. May have to get some more here if I do this again. All right, got some on. Got it started. Here we go. Yeah, I just don't dink around with it. You want to get it down and tight on there very quickly. There we go. So, that's pretty much on how you seal up these screws, these lower stud mounts and stuff for your transmission. And you can see down inside, I don't know if you can in there, but you know, all these come straight through into the case area, and this just helps seal everything in place. So I hope that little tip helped out. I wanted to show a closer look up of that platform I made. This is just some 1/8 inch material, and I think that this is what 5/16 or it's just some scrap they had laying around that I welded on the bottom. So that just goes on there. Well, this pretty much ends the episode on dismantling the old Shovelhead transmission, part 1, and repairing the studs for mounting this. Now, if there's any questions or comments, you know, you can put them in the comment section below, or you can send them to my email address at tmiyagi@hotmail.com. And if you've liked this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget that ringy-dingy button for the next episode coming up. So this is Mr. Miyagi saying, you be safe out there and hope to see you on the road. Ciao.